Hi and welcome to a new video from our Wunschgetreu review section. Our review pro Remo can't get enough. So, he checked out 7 of the most popular beard trimmers in this video. If you are looking for a suitable beard trimmer but ain't too sure which one to get, stay tuned. We summed up everything you need to know. Alright then, here we go. We begin with the Braun MGK 7220 and the BT 7240. Both devices scored with a great battery runtime of 100 minutes, a charging time of just 1 hour, and the 5-minute quick charge feature. The two devices from Braun also achieved top marks in terms of cleaning, as they are both fully washable. The blades are proclaimed to be sharp for a lifetime. Also, we have a good cutting range up to 21 or 20 mm respectively, and on top of that we have a comprehensive range of accessories which completes the picture. But are there any differences between the two models at all? Starting with our first comparison, we have the Braun MGK and the Braun BT. As you can see, both devices are very similar. The BT can stand out a bit due to the rotary control, which adjusts the cutting length. It snaps in tightly and on top of that stays that way even if you have reached the end of the scale. In contrast to that, the attachment of the MGK falls down at some point. Seems a little bit inferior to me, but still works very well in the end. Besides that, a closer look reveals other differences. Both have a charge and low battery indicator, but only the BT can be used while the power cord is plugged in. Thus, the BT is a bit ahead in terms of the features and the technology. While using the devices, we felt like the BT's rotary control and locking mechanism as well as the trimming result were a bit better. As a result, the BT is slightly ahead here as well. Although, there is no difference in terms of blades or the cleaning of the device. There are some differences in regards to the accessories though. Overall, you could say that the MGK has a greater quantity of trimming attachments, while the BT offers a bit more quality, as you can see with the included travel bag. The bottom line is that we get the same score for both in this regard. Overall, the BT is a bit ahead in our results. Although the MGK can also be recommended as an all-in-one solution without any worries. However, those who are not willing to make any compromises in terms of comfort and handling are best advised to go for the BT. And if you're interested in one of these products, make sure to check out the description below in order to find out more about the pricing and availability. At this point, I would like to talk about 2 basic concepts which we have here in our comparison. One would be the pretty classic trimmer concept, which is familiar. Depending on the device, you have the rotary control and comp attachments as well as the shaving head. We also know that at least in the past you could cut yourself with that while using it. On the other hand, we have to talk about the Philips OneBlade products. Here I have the standard OneBlade, simply just to show you that we have a different concept here. It's not a classic trimmer, it's more like a razor. And it works pretty well, like a razor. And you might think that shaving yourself with that might be dangerous because it's too sharp, right? Far from it in fact. Shaving with this device has a very high sense of security. You never have the feeling that you are cutting yourself. Nevertheless, the shaving results are really smooth. So much for the classification. But let's start over again. The OneBlade products from Philips have a blade system with a clipper in common which moves 200 times per minute. Nevertheless, to provide a safe device without a risk of injury, Philips relies on a double-layered protection system consisting of an anti-friction coating as well as rounded blade edges. The blades are subject to wear and tear on both the OneBlade and the OneBlade Pro. In the end, that means that they will last about 4 months given a conventional amount of usage. We mainly find differences in regards to the battery runtime, which is significantly better with the OneBlade Pro, which offers 90 minutes instead of the OneBlade with 60 minutes. The charging time is also much better with 1 hour compared to the OneBlade with 4 hours. Besides that, the OneBlade Pro offers a bit more convenience with a digital battery display and has a bit more to offer in terms of the cutting range. There is one major difference between the Philips OneBlade and the OneBlade up to 5 mm. The OneBlade Pro offers an attachment that is adjustable in the range between 0.4 and 10 mm. In terms of features, the Pro is able to compete and can keep up with the strong rivals from Braun. The OneBlade on the other hand loses points here, but visually remains as the more appealing device in our opinion. During compared to the other devices in this review. Unfortunately, with both devices, cutting doesn't turn out quite as well. In addition, there are slight deductions in terms of the volume. Nevertheless, we have a solid result here. In contrast to that, we have the cleaning of the devices and the blades. In regards to cleaning, we get decent results, since both devices are shower-proof and thus can be cleaned easily. Although, the blades only last for 4 months, which unfortunately cannot keep up with most other devices on the market and thus significantly reduces the score. In terms of accessories, the OneBlade has a greater quantity, but the OneBlade Pro comes out on top due to a higher quality, as you can see with the included charging station. Nevertheless, the Pro cannot keep up with the large scope of delivery that the Braun devices provide. Scoring overall, the Pro is a bit ahead in comparison to the standard model, to be credited here. In our opinion, the OneBlade product specialized more on shaving than trimming. When shaving or defining your beard, a OneBlade is probably the best choice. Moving on, we have the Panasonic ER-GB43. This beard trimmer comes with a short battery runtime of 50 minutes and a long charging time of about 8 to 9 hours. Also a bit too short compared to other devices, proves to be the cutting range of up to 10 mm. But still, the ER-GB43 shows some special features compared to other devices. It is noticeable that the Panasonic has a slightly unusual design. One would be the rotary control, which is integrated into the device. And in my opinion, that works quite well, because it snaps in tightly. And there is no adjusting the cutting length by mistake. Secondly, a special feature shows itself while turning it all the way up to 10 mm. Doing so reveals the small opening. You can hold this opening under running water in order to clean the device and rinse the shaving head free. Unfortunately, the rotary control and the water inlet cannot compensate for the poor battery performance and the small cutting range, so we can only award a medium rating. However, the Panasonic performs better when it comes to trimming and pruning. The trimming and pruning performance is further complemented with a comfortable handling. In addition, the device from Panasonic was one of the quietest devices in our comparison. The only drawback was the feeling of safety. The blade seemed a little bit sharp, still a good result though. The Panasonic gets solid scores in regards to cleaning, as its cutting system and the device's set are washable. Last but not least, the aforementioned water inlet makes cleaning the device much easier. The blades are described as durable. Unfortunately, Panasonic cannot score with the accessories. Only the somewhat clunky charging station promises a bit of comfort. We would have liked a few more parts for a device in this price range. The bottom line is that the Panasonic can still keep up with the competitors. However, the cutting range limits the target group. If you want to take care of a longer beard, you should rather try the Braun MGK or BT. Here I have the two cheapest devices from our comparison, which are the King CG LED from Braun and the device from Remington. What I personally noticed, these are simply the cheapest devices. The manufacturers tend to save money, and in my opinion, in this case, you get this feeling especially while looking at the comp attachments. It's a little bit loose, and due to it, the cutting precision suffers a bit. It still works in the end, but it's just not as nice. The same goes with the King CG LED from Braun, which is built the same as the MGK. The cutting length actually snaps in tightly. But at some point we get past the last stage and then it just falls off. That's not really reassurable, is that both devices are built the same way. The same? Not quite. Take a look at how the blades are arranged. While the blade of the Braun device points to the front, the blade of the Remington device points to the back. The problem is that someone who is used to shave his beard with such devices works in his usual pattern. You most likely have to turn that around completely with this device. That's because you have to hold it upside down now and shave that way. However, it's just a matter of getting used to, nothing major. They both work pretty well in the end. Remington has a feature which I personally really liked. Unlike other devices where you often have to switch the comp attachments on it, Remington offers an integrated precision trimmer. You simply push this clip on the device forward and thus a narrow trimmer blade with which you can rework fiddly areas reveals itself. I think that's pretty good. Of course, the cheapest devices in our comparison cannot keep up with the high standard reveals themselves as the knight in shining armor. The Remington in particular has a clear weakness, which is a charging time of 14 to 16 hours with a yield of only 40 minutes. On the other hand, the device from Remington can be used while the power cord is plugged in. Therefore, you at least won't be in too much trouble when the battery runs low and you're out of time. In contrast, the King C Gillette has practically no features, but it's still a tad better in regards to the battery run and charging time, as well as a slightly better cutting range with Braun's usual 21mm. Summing everything up, we get similar scores in regards to the features, but they can hardly keep up with the other devices on the market. However, we were quite surprised during usage. The King C Gillette delivered a good result for its price point. Similar to the Braun MGK, the Gillette has its weak point in the locking of the comp attachments and also doesn't fare too well in regards to trimming. However, overall it provides solid results. Of course, the device from Remington also trims the beard, but you do have to make a few more corrective strokes compared to the device from Gillette. The strangely shaped shaving head and the wobbly comp attachment add to that. The volume and sense of security also suffer somewhat with this device. All in all, we can unfortunately only award a medium score. When it comes to the topic of cleaning and blades, the two don't differ too much, although compared to the more expensive trimmers, these devices are not washable. There is not much to say in regards of the accessories either, as there are none, or at least only the most necessary. However, since everything is functional, we give a base score for this as we did with the Panasonic. Rating these devices overall, both receive relatively good scores despite the low price point. So if you don't want to spend that much, you don't have to. If you make a few compromises in one or the other area, you can still get your beard off without spending too much. Let's award the winner of our comparison now. As you would suspect of a well-developed market, none of the devices received a really bad rating. On the contrary, the trimmers scored relatively close to each other and even the cheapest models fulfilled the core function. Nevertheless, we would like to highlight our winner here. And that is the Braun BT7240. Coming in second, we have the Braun MGK 7220, and our third spot goes to the Philips OneBlade Pro. Alright, we have checked these beard trimmers for you. If you are interested in one of these devices, just take a look at the description below. There you'll find out more about the pricing and availability of these products. Apart from that, just stay tuned. Our end card will provide a few more interesting recommendations for you.